and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. I'm your host, Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco, and I'm very excited to be able to reach out to everyone each and every Friday to be able to talk to you about your design challenges, talk to you about case studies, and most importantly, introduce you to my co-host.
Thanks, Marcy. I'm Paul Hogenboom. I'm the president of the Tremco Construction Products Group, Marcy, a fine collection all over the world, brands, systems, products, and most important, our people.
Our people, yeah. Paul and I are super proud and grateful to be able to be up in front of everybody each and every Friday, to be able to bring different types of information. This is November, and we're continuing on with our healthcare.
Yep.
That's our topic.
We have today's exciting, one of my favorites.
You know, what's interesting as we start to plan future episodes, we've got a bunch of different ideas rambling around in our minds each and every Friday. But as Paul mentioned, we're super excited about today and what the content we're able to bring to you. So. As always, we've got some information we want to share. So let me pull up a few slides to kind of direct our conversation throughout today.
I think the other neat thing, Marcy, is healthcare is so top of mind today, right, for everybody. And it's pretty cool that we have such a significant role and impact.
Absolutely.
On healthcare construction and maintenance.
Absolutely. And in that whole mode of gratitude, you know, we obviously want to thank those frontline workers that need to go and continue to work each and every day. I had an interesting conversation this week with a design firm that does a lot of business in California and how they need to do certain design considerations that these hospitals still need to function even if you have a massive earthquake. So
hurricane.
Yes, absolutely. So it's just interesting, right? So the role that critical role that a hospital plays is huge.
I think we assume it'll always be there no matter what happens.
Absolutely. So top of mind, obviously, healthcare construction. Found some interesting information, and this is a shout out to Brian Gagney, one of our coworkers who sent me this. So this is just an interesting article here talking about construction in New York City specifically and how they're looking for innovative approach. So they're looking at modular components, flexible space, and a broader use of advanced filtration as some of the major trends that they're seeing in healthcare.
Yeah, I gotta imagine the whole air management. Of course, we specialize in keeping bad air from coming in and the good air leaving. Yeah. And then, of course, that's just so important for being able to manage airflow within the building.
Absolutely. When we worked with those engineers that design those HVAC systems, right? They're designing the HVAC system assuming you have an airtight structure, allowing the air leakage to occur where they want it to, which is their vents.
Yes.
Not other areas, not transitions. So once again, that critical role in how efficient our structures are. Here's another article that I found from the healthcare construction and operations. Once again, you know, planning for that impact on healthcare design and construction. Similar information here, just about being agile, you know, flexible in their design as we look towards being slightly different because of COVID.
Yeah, just the whole awareness of rooms needing positive or negative pressure now, right? You hear so much about the need to manage airflow within a structure.
Absolutely.
In that manner. And again, to your point, that assumes we're controlling the entire exterior.
Exactly. We're making sure that those areas that aren't meant to allow for natural flow of air is not occurring. So a huge critical role there. As we look at that, you know, I found some other information in terms of construction trends and where we're at. They had predicted back in 2015, I believe, that construction in healthcare would be up about 2% in 2020. Feverishly searching for that information to see how that's changed. Obviously, that was written up years ago, so it's interesting to see if that's affected. And I'm wondering if I would take a guess that maybe it's even increased just because of trying to make sure that we're adapting and being agile in our new normal.
Yeah, I certainly think there's probably been a lot of recent, we'll call it maintenance expenditures made, right? Bringing systems up to a whole new level.
Absolutely. And when we think about those critical connections, right, the window to wall is something that comes to mind and something that we talk about a lot as an organization. And what we're looking at here is what we say the window is sitting proud. So that means it's not in line with the rest of the assembly, right? So to make the connection there, you can see you can put your hand in between that window to that wall. So it's a pretty difficult and critical connection that needs to be made.
And becoming much more prevalent, right? This is really the trend in construction.
Yep.
That you have these type of details and those type of gaps.
Absolutely. As we look at continuous installation and how it's placed and what that means for design, we're seeing more and more of this type of proud or even recessed construction where you need to be, once again, that word agile keeps coming in with your connectivity.
Yeah. And as we always say, Marcy, we love our sealants. They can't solve everything.
They can't solve everything, right? We need the right width to depth ratio. We need the right bonding surface. We need it to be supported appropriately. That would be a very big challenge for our sealants there.
Yeah. Probably not the best approach.
Exactly. There's other ways that people detail this connection with something like a peel and stick. We know that it has been done, and depending on your construction, we know there's been successful installs. Dante and I just did a new building science breakdown, which we're going to be featuring here shortly, that talks about elongation. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check that out. But in the meantime, what we'd like to do with all of you right now is we'd like to poll all of you and ask you what you feel is a critical connection on your project. And we're only giving you 3 choices, so feel free to send me a chat or a comment if there is more critical connections you'd like to talk about. So right now we're giving you the choice as an audience. What do you believe is the most troublesome or difficult connection point on your project? Is it the roof to wall? Is it the window to the wall? Or is it below grade to wall?
We think of these as the big 3.
Yes.
Which one are you voting for, Marcy?
I'm voting for window to wall.
I have to agree with you, but that's probably because I'm around you so much.
Well, that's good. See how I'm influencing you. That's awesome. And the reason why I say that, Paul, and I would love, I'm going to reach out to some of you that answer different ways, so be warned for that. But you know, I think of the complexity of that window to wall, right? So we're looking roof to wall. It's going to be more in line. It doesn't mean that it's not complex, or it doesn't mean that it can't be troublesome depending on the elements, the technologies, the substrates. But just that window to wall, there's just so many different ways and so many different types of windows.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, as you just noted, it's an area of very fast evolution at this point. So I think things are changing very, very fast in construction methods. And you pointed out panelization, speed of construction, modularization.
Yeah.
I think so many things happening so fast.
Absolutely. And when I think of things like what we like to provide is like standard details, I feel like I can make a standard detail for the roof to wall or even a below grade to wall. When I get to that window to wall, standard kind of flies out the window. Yeah. When it comes to that. So thanks everybody for those that were able to answer that question. And I'm glad we gave you some options up here. So we've got roof to wall at about 43%, window to wall 45%, and below grade to wall about 12%. So that's great. I like the difference there that we got from that poll.
Yeah, I think we often think roof to wall gets perhaps overlooked the most. Meaning it might not be the most complicated, but perhaps it gets less thought.
You're right, and I definitely see that. That's one of the conversations. If my kids were sitting here, they're like, "Yes, Mom, we know." Because when we drive around, if I see the roof membrane flapping in the breeze, it definitely breaks my heart, as I'm sure it does to a lot of you that are on this call with us today. So thanks for talking to us about that. So as we look at that window to wall and we take the complexity that why I voted for it is demonstrated here in this picture. So not only is that complexity exist, it happens multiple times all over your structure, right? So your roof to wall, yes, we need to make that connection, but maybe it doesn't happen, obviously it's not gonna happen as many times and in many different ways all over your structure. Same thing with the below grade wall. So yeah, there's gonna be different variations of that and concerns for that, but I just see that this is a great bird's eye view of the complexity of how we make that connection. And this is the project we're gonna be talking about today. So we won't steal any more thunder by talking too much about it. What's really cool here, I wanted to announce the fact that yes, we are talking about Parkland, and this is from several years ago. So one of these pictures here, I left the date on it so we could all see that, was 2013. So I know when you think about a design phase, I'm sure it took many years before that, getting to that stage that picture was taken at 2013. And I want to do a major shout out to Ken Krieger. Ken Krieger is our rep out of Dallas, and he provided me with not one folder, not 2 folders, but 3 folders of information and photos. So lots of documentation, lots of information, and another shout out to Peter Portier, because a lot of what we did on this project involved his expertise on designing that ability to make that connection.
Yeah, Peter and his team are often the unsung heroes behind a lot of these projects, right?
Absolutely.
What they provide.
Critical role there. And just a few more pictures here of just that ongoing work there. So without any further ado, I want to make sure we have time to talk to our guest today and bring him on. So Chris Johnson, welcome to Tremco Live.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Awesome,
Good.
great.
How are you?
Doing good. Happy to be here. I'd like to apologize in advance if anybody hears any loud barking, because I do have two rather large dogs and I do get deliveries from Amazon from time to time, and it's that time of day, so.
Of course, right? This is when they will deliver. I was doing presentation the other day on the
Murphy's
landscape.
Law, right?
So I almost want your dogs to bark now because I think it adds a little more, levity. Well, Chris, thanks so much for being able to be a part of Tremco Live today. Researching you and your experience, you've got 24 years, almost, well, I guess when this was done, almost 25 years just at Corgan Associates. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the industry and, of course, at Corgan.
Yeah, actually, I guess in total, I've got about 30 years experience. Graduated from Texas Tech University in 1990. The Bachelor of Architecture 5-year degree program there, and worked at a small firm for about 5 years, got my license, and then went to work for Corgan. I was probably project architect and project manager for about 8 or 10 years. Our lead in technical design here retired around that time, and I've been writing specifications for, I guess, the last 15 years since then. So.
That's awesome. When I was looking at the information for Corgan, I saw a lot of similarities in terms of how we look at things at Tremco, and I saw 2 key features. And I said it a couple times already: agility, or being agile, and that was a key feature from information I was reading, as well as building relationships with your clients. Yeah,
boy, I'll tell you what, that agility thing has really come into play this last year for obvious reasons. We got to just, if anybody from Corgan's listening right now, just a big shout out to our IT department for being prepared for this. Honestly, we were able immediately to all shut down and work from home very seamlessly, which, that's kind of where I'm still at today. Our office a lot of us have been back in the office actually since midsummer, but there has been a spike in cases here, as you guys know, across the country, but particularly here in Texas. So we're all back at home, working from home temporarily, but everything is still rolling smoothly. And yes, you mentioned the client thing. That's always been kind of a big part of what Corgan is about. We've always maintained that we pursue relationships, not projects. And 95% of the work that we do is with repeat clients. And then when we do get those 5% new clients, we hope that they become repeat clients too.
Right. The longevity factor as well, not only yourself, but I also read that on average, the principals at their firm have invested 19 years at Corgan.
Wow. Sounds a lot like Trump.
And it's funny that our marketing department was doing just a little fluff piece on my department last month to put in a proposal, just because my department's changed a lot in the last couple of years. We've actually added a lot of in-house specialists. I've got a roof consultant, I've got a acoustician, a code specialist, a lighting designer. And so they wanted to do a write-up on us, and they put in there, they said, the average person in technical design services has 25 years experience. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I went back and I looked at everybody's resume, and I was like, you can safely put in there 35 years experience, and that would be a true statement.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing. It just that theme of throughout your whole website about service, foresight, and design excellence is definitely there, and is truly noteworthy as we talk about your involvement on the Parkland project specifically, and this famous photo that we've used time and time again, Chris. Like, right. when Ken said this to me, I'm like, oh my God, that's Chris, because we use your photo a lot.
Yeah, well, what's funny about that is I believe that's the same opening taken from the other side, the image that you were just showing previously, which was the outside. So that is a significant gap.
Yep.
And you know, I'm sure a lot of you know what's driven that. The size of that gap seems to keep getting bigger and bigger because of the, you know, code starting to require continuous installation more and more. And those R values keep going up, and every time they go up, those windows move further out.
Yeah. Which is why we have the great ability to make the connection with ProGlaze ETA as it continues to extend and extend out beyond, you know, where it typically was installed. So pretty cool information here on this slide. There was obviously a collaborative approach here. So this was something you guys worked very closely with HDR out of Oklahoma.
Yes. Omaha, actually, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
HDR, yeah.
Oh, yes, Omaha. I just look back. We both start with O. But I love all the listing. I mean, this was a huge endeavor, and just once again, that whole idea of collaboration clearly had to be a constant for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we actually had a co-location office out there that was right across the street from the job site. They rented like an old warehouse that was going to be torn down. So the design team and the contractor and, you know, a lot of the major subs all had, you know, project manager types that were in that same building. So, I mean, a lot of the collaboration was literally, you know, full-time, face-to-face.
That's intense. I read that too, that you had co-located so that you could continue to have that kind of discussion. And I like the BARA, the Balfour Beatty, Austin, you know, H.J. Russell and Azteca Enterprises. So they even had their, you know, that conglomeration in terms of working on this project together.
Yep, we were joint ventured with HDR on the design side, and then of course all those general contractors with Austin as, or excuse me, with Balfour as the lead actually were they were all joint ventured too.
And then additional specialty consultants. So clearly your job trailer wasn't very big, which is why.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was an old warehouse, so it was pretty big.
Exactly. So a couple of the resounding elements that I noticed in just some of the research was, first off, the engineering performance into system specifications, and you talked a bit about that. Do you want to explain that a little bit further to us?
Yeah, I've always kind of been a big proponent of writing specifications around systems rather than products. You know, I mean, air barriers have been in the market for, oh, I don't know what, going on 20 years now, and a lot of people still look at an air barrier as a sheet or a fluid or something like that you just put over the sheathing, but it's really not. It's more than that. There's all these other components that go into transitions and things of that nature to make it a complete system, which is, I think, one of the things we're going to get into in some of your slides further on.
Absolutely. And just that whole, the project requirements and how it relates to the whole design element, ensuring performance, you know, making sure you've got the performance within the glazing system and then continuity throughout the whole envelope. I read that the mock-up was massive.
Yeah, it really was. I think somebody got a real nice deer stand out of that at the end of the day. But if I remember right, I think the mock-up that they did on that project cost pretty close to $1 million, and it was large. It had all the glass on it, you know, the stone, the composite metal panels, just everything, so that it can, you know, so that the owners can walk up and, you know, see it, touch it, feel it, and then we did a lot of testing on that mock-up as well. So it wasn't just an aesthetic thing. We used it, you know, to kind of test and make sure air didn't leak, water didn't leak, and all that stuff before we, you know, applied it to the actual project. Mock-up was actually in a parking lot across the street.
In those folders, I didn't see a picture, so I'm really curious to get a hold of that picture. So it's pretty interesting to see how all the elements came together.
Now we want to know where it went.
Yeah, that's true. Who's got it? Who owns that?
It's taking a pretty big truck to haul it off, actually. I've probably got a photo of it someplace I can try to dig up for you.
This building, and clearly the picture I'm showing here doesn't do it justice because it's not even a real photo, but I was in Dallas a few years ago with my kids on vacation, and I was driving by and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Parkland Hospital. Like it's amazing. It's impressive to see that. I mean, it got this award in 2015 from the Texas Society of Architects and Design, the design award, because it's this amazing campus.
Yeah. And I think
it really is. It is a big place.
Did I read right? 2 million square feet. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's impressive.
Pretty big.
Well, and I think some of your design considerations, right? It's like cantilevered out, and there's just so many different transitions. We used to, I think a few episodes back, or maybe even in the beginning, I asked Paul, how many connections do you think are on a typical building? I can't imagine even what we would say on this one.
Millions.
Oh, geez, there's no telling.
Gazillions, I think, was what Paul said. So we did do the polling question earlier, and as a panelist, you weren't able to answer that. Which one do you think is the most critical or troublesome? Is it the roof to wall, window to wall, or below grade to wall?
It's interesting. I know today's discussion is about window to wall, and I do think that one's very important. But if you'll notice, it was pretty neck and neck between roof to wall and wall to window. And I think the people that voted for roof to wall were thinking the same thing I was, in that I think a lot of that has to do with the, let's call it, creativity of the designers. Because when your roof cantilevers over the wall, right, that makes it extremely difficult to maintain thermal continuity. But just on your average everyday, building, yes, I think window to wall is probably the most complicated, because that goes back to what you said, where there really is no standard detail for that, not anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that whole holistic approach, having, I think Paul, you said that, right? Who's making that connection, right? From the roof to the wall can also be complicated.
Yeah, and I think Chris hit the nail on the head. It's about a system.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Right.
Don't have a system, it gets really, really difficult or improbable.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. That's right.
So let's take a few looks at how we did solve that that window where Chris could put his hand from the outside to the inside, and take a look at that. So here, I think, is where collaboration was key, right? So you had the steel lintel at both the head and the sill. And I think this one shows it a little bit further as well, how it was cantilevered over the steel lintel. And I believe there was some discussion that's around modifying it slightly so that we could make the appropriate connection.
Yeah, as you can see from the detail there on the right, I mean, what you're looking at there that's a punched window opening. So you really don't have a lot of mullion depth there, because it's not necessary. It's not like this is a 30-foot tall curtain wall where you're going to have 10 or even 12-inch deep mullions. It's just a 6-inch mullion. Well, by the time you put your continuous insulation over the air barrier and the sheathing, and then you've got your airspace, and then you've got what's there on the left side of the detail, that was actually Texas limestone, which I think was about 3 inches thick. So as you can see, that pushes your window system beyond any kind of support from the cold form metal framing. So we had to add some cantilever structure just to have something there to make our hard connections between the window and the wall system.
Absolutely. And I think this picture talks about that. So working closely, they suggested the shortening of the lintel, and then that allowed for these molded corners to be able to help out with that. But even this, we needed to take not only what we designed and help you in terms of fabricating in the field to make that connection as well. So very versatile, I think, when utilizing something like this.
Yeah, it always amazes me, Marcy. There's really no geometry we've not been able to make on a custom basis.
Well, and I think custom is key, right? Because everything's going to be a little different once you get out into the field. And I think these pictures here, the animation. We always like to talk about the animation. Did you find this helpful? Because it really does help tell that story, Chris. Being able to see how it comes together.
Yeah, I think it's certainly helpful for people that aren't really familiar with the system and how it works. It absolutely does, because it's a sequenced installation thing. It's great.
It brings it to life, and then I love seeing obviously it brought to life, right? So here's a couple more pictures of just those connections of making it from the window to the wall.
Yeah. I like Marcy. We think of the animation as actually part of the deliverable. So we've got quite an investment in people and talent to create those.
Absolutely. And then of course this one, right? Project specific conditions. I think Ken said that picture on the right is his favorite. How you continue to have to kind of make adjustments.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about this system. Actually, and another way I have seen this approached. Matter of fact, we had another rather large project recently, which was so big that the GC split the glazing contract between two different glazing contractors. And of course, we wrote the specs that we always did with the ETA as a transitional membrane. We kind of got into it so one glazing contractor chose to go that route with the ETA as specified. Another one was insistent on using like a stainless steel shadow box that projected out. But the problem with something like that is, then you seal around the shadow box. You seal that to the air and weather barrier, and then you seal the shadow box to the curtain wall. The problem with that is all that stuff has to be made in the shop, and if it doesn't fit when it comes out into the field, then you've got a little bit of a mess on your hand. And you have to figure out how to make it fit essentially. With something like this, and I guess that's why Ken's so partial to that image on the right. I mean, you just work around it. I mean, construction is a bit of a inexact science. Sometimes you got to allow a little bit of a tolerance. A stainless steel shadow box doesn't allow that, but this is just so flexible that you can pretty much work around anything.
Yeah, something you can fabricate in the field with a pair of scissors. Can't do that with stainless steel.
That's right. No.
Yeah, so I think that was a big part of this was, that challenge of connectivity that exists on projects, and having this as a solution was great. I know there was a lot of collaboration and work throughout the entire project, from field testing and site observations, and these two pictures are just some of the testing, right? This is a small, more localized test that you guys do. One of the interesting things on the upper picture is I remember helping Ken with this one, because what you typically see from the upper picture is an adhesion test, Paul, and what we typically see is, a minimum value that people want to see, and on this one, they actually double the value they wanted to see from an adhesion perspective, and I like that because it's going above and beyond, which is something we like to do on a regular basis. And Chris, you made the slides again because you are over here on the left. So. And then, of course, the bubble gun testing going on the bottom right-hand side.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of testing on this building for sure.
Critical part of it, right? Being able to verify, field install, and then being there for site observations. Huge part of this endeavor for sure.
Yeah, it really was. Absolutely.
When we look at that collaborative approach and that environment and how critical it is from a design perspective, especially when you're dealing with something like healthcare, is there any key takeaway that you would want to recommend to anybody watching when it comes to healthcare construction and design?
I would say really one of the biggest concerns with healthcare, I mean, this is a concern for any building, but even more so with healthcare, is certainly air and water infiltration, because you certainly don't want, any mold or anything like that to grow inside the wall assemblies in that kind of sterile environment. So that's probably, that is one of the reasons why we did take a systems approach and why we did have so much field observation and testing on this building in particular.
Well, and I think that, thank you for saying that, because I think it's such a key part of it, right? When you look at how different types of buildings are constructed, have different performance needs. So it could be where they're geographically built or what their intended use is. And I guess, obviously for healthcare, that's even so much more critical.
Yeah, and that's why we're
when it comes to building performance, yes.
That's why we're so heavily invested, Marcy, in our test wall and our test facilities to do just this type of testing.
Makes it a really great collaborative effect. I love being able to do this type of testing and then go off and see it be in use or even having that experience. And Chris, I'll have you know that that bubble gun testing from ASTM E1186 is something that We were questioning back then when you guys were doing it, because we know that it's a bit of a challenge when you test an area at those pressures. And I believe working so closely with everyone on this project gave us a new line of sight as to what role that can play. And now, I mean, we have that equipment at our test facility now too, so we can do that localized testing and then also associate it with the whole holistic assembly testing that we do as well.
Great.
So we learned a lot, obviously working on this.
Good.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being able to join us today. We really appreciate your time, effort, and of course, your relationship that we have and continue to have with you and your organization. Really looking forward to more and more opportunities to work together.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Paul, one of your favorite projects, lots of different things going on there.
This was like a Hall of Fame day for me, right? For construction.
So I'm not sure exactly when they said that construction was completed, but obviously they got an award in 2015. So we're going on at least 5 years ago. Lots of different products were used from Tremco on this. I listed them here. Once again, just really want to thank Chris and Corgan for their participation here. So very exciting to be able to deliver this type of information to you. And as always, if you have an idea, please let me know, let Paul know. We'd love to be able to share your idea, your design challenge live on our broadcast. This one actually, because Ken Krieger was in town, we were like, we need to do this one. So those are the great conversations we're able to have on a regular basis.
So Marcy, we're next week, we're not going to have our regular.
We won't.
So we'll have a little message for folks next week.
Yeah. Yeah. We won't ask you to tune in next Friday, but we are preparing a message that we'll be sending out with a message all focused on gratitude.
Yeah. There's a lot to be thankful for in the midst of pretty stressful time.
Exactly. Yeah. So as always, we want to thank everybody for your time and attention today, and stay safe out there.
We'll usually I say see you next week, but we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Be safe.